And welcome into a special Saturday edition of the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can take the show on demand 24/7 by checking out the Nick Craig Show podcast in your favorite podcast app. You can also listen online by visiting the website nickcraig.com. Our show this morning, as always, is brought to you by Melissa Gott and the amazing team over at the Law Group here in Wilmington. You can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. It has been a busy night in the news cycle as around 1 o'clock Eastern Time, the United States launched decisive strikes against the Venezuelan regime, Nicolas Maduro, and the government there. The President of the United States and Donald Trump set to address the nation shortly after it was reported shortly after 4 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time this Saturday morning that the United States had captured Maduro and his wife. They had been taken into custody by the United States. This was a joint military law enforcement operation that was conducted in portions of Venezuela, the capital city of the country, overnight. The president making an appearance earlier this morning on the Fox News channel discussing some of the details of this, consistently praised the work and the bravery and the heroism of members of the United States military who went in the, as he described it, the dark of night. It was 2 o'clock a.m. local time in Venezuela, 1 o'clock here on the East Coast, in which there was this very strategic, very coordinated military strike in which the United States was able to capture Maduro and his wife. He's often been described, and I think justifiably and rightfully so, as the illegitimate president of Venezuela due to him essentially boxing out and shutting down previous candidates that were running for president in the country of Venezuela. The president in Donald Trump set to address the nation from Palm Beach, Florida, Mar-a-Lago. Coming up here in just a couple of minutes, we'll listen to the president's speech in its entirety. And of course, as you would expect, the outrage has already begun. You've already seen the tweets, the posts from those on social media, those on the Democrat side of the aisle. Donald Trump has declared war. He didn't get congressional approval. It's unconstitutional. I mean, it's the same old sorry nonsense from these individuals. And when the president was on Fox this morning, he was asked exactly about this, asked about the Democrat reaction to him conducting these strikes, capturing Maduro, who, by the way, had already been indicted, or not had been indicted, but had been charged here in the United States some 5 years ago during the first Trump administration for his active role in an ongoing drug running scheme that has killed hundreds of millions of Americans, hundreds of thousands a year here stateside in the United States. The president, this was his reaction when asked by Fox News this morning. What is your reaction to Democrats claiming that this is unconstitutional, that you don't have the authority to do this, and it shouldn't be done? Here's President Trump.
But as far as last night is concerned, it was really genius. What they did is genius. And the Democrats, maybe they'll take a shot. They'll take a shot. All they do is complain. They don't talk about, they should say, you know what, we did a great job. We're stopping drugs from coming into this country. And nobody's been able to do it until we came along. But they should say, great job. They shouldn't say, oh, gee, maybe it's not constitutional. The same old stuff that we've been hearing for years and years and years. They did an incredible job. These men and women that went out there last night, the courage they had, going into an area where, all the lights were turned off. We turned off almost all of the lights in Caracas. I mean, this thing was so organized. And they go into a dark space with machine guns facing them all over the place. And then you hear from a guy that I'd never even heard of him. But you hear from some congressman saying, oh, this is so terrible. We're saving lives. And by the way, the boats, every boat, because that's sort of related to this, every boat that we hit saves 25,000 lives.
So that's President Trump earlier this morning on the Fox News channel. And, he's right, because it is, and you've heard me talk about this plenty of times in the past. It's a boy who cried wolf situation with the Democrats. It's constant. Anything that Donald Trump does. I mean, he has a bowel movement in the middle of the night, and you've got Democrats on Capitol Hill claiming that he needs to be impeached for it. It is absolutely a boy who cried wolf situation. When you are out there every single day, and what Democrats have done now for 10 freaking years is go out every single day and claim that Trump is an authoritarian, he's a dictator, he doesn't act appropriately as the president, he's constantly usurping the power of Congress. Eventually, folks, and it's why the boy who cried wolf, whatever that is, whatever you describe that story, exists the way that it does. Because they claim this stuff constantly, and at a certain point, you, as a rational human being, say, well, that can't possibly be true every single time, right? That's why the boy eventually got eaten by the wolf, because he cried wolf 24/7. There was never a wolf. The time that there was, nobody believed him. So he got eaten by the wolf. I believe that's how the riddle or the story goes there with the boy who cried wolf. But it's the same thing with the Democrats. All they do is claim that everything that President Donald Trump does is awful, terrible, the worst thing that we've ever seen, the worst thing that's ever existed in our country. It's constant. And I am at the point where I don't even listen to it anymore. I don't put any stock into it. I don't believe it. I'm not here to debate it because it's all the time, 24/7, regardless of what it does. They claim the same thing when he strategically targeted Iranian nuclear facilities back just a couple of months ago. It was the same discussion. It was the same argument. It was the same usual suspects out and about making the exact same ridiculous claims. And so the president has made it abundantly clear to Maduro, which I don't understand how anybody could find themselves shocked or surprised by the actions of the United States overnight. He has made it abundantly clear now to Maduro and the Venezuelan leadership for months that there would be consequences on a litany of different issues. If it wasn't emptying out their jails, emptying out their prisons, emptying out their insane asylums, and giving people essentially free caravan coverage to the U.S.-Mexico border to dump potentially tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Tren de Aragua gang members into the country. If that wasn't enough, now it's the out-of-control narco state that exists in Venezuela. And this whole concept, and I'm gonna say this. This concept that we're at war with Venezuela is the most ridiculous thing in the world. They don't have a sitting president. They don't have a real military. And you're going to claim that we're at war with said country? We're not at war with Venezuela. You can't be at war with a country that is, at this point, illegitimate. And that's exactly what they are. Just a couple of years ago, you had people literally killing each other in the streets. This is not an exaggeration. People were actually murdered in the streets of Venezuela. I don't know if it was in the capital or another city. But you had individuals literally murdered in the streets over toilet paper. Yes, you probably remember the headlines. You may have seen the videos on social media. People were being murdered over toilet paper in Venezuela just a couple of years ago. That's how unstable the country is. That is the situation in Venezuela right now. There was a presidential election that was supposed to happen back in, it was either 2024 or 2025. There was a front-runner candidate. She did very well in the voting, and she was barred from running. She was just given the Nobel Peace Prize just back a couple of months ago for fighting back against the out-of-control dictatorship that exists under Nicolas Maduro in the country of Venezuela. So let's just simmer down a little bit. Let's take a couple of steps back. If we're going to make the argument and the claim that we're at war with a nation, I would hope that would be A, approved by Congress, and B, would be a nation that we could actually be at war with. I am a strong believer of everything that I know, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm some expert in Venezuela. I'm not. However, I have been listening to news coverage and reading about it since about 4 o'clock this morning. So I've gotten a crash course on what's going on in Venezuela over the last 6 hours or so. So not an expert, but I think I know enough to speak intelligently about it. We are definitely not at war with the country, and I would argue we couldn't be just based on its current structure. So it's going to be interesting to see where things go from here. Again, the president set to address the nation from Palm Beach, Florida. Coming up here in just a couple of minutes, we'll take the president's comments in their entirety live here on the Nick Craig Show streaming this morning. And so we'll hear what he has to say. The question, of course, and something that he is going to have to answer for, the United States does not have a good track record with regime change. We don't. I mean, we've seen throughout the Middle East over the last 25, maybe even 30 years, when the United States gets involved in regime change, most of the time, not every time, but most of the time, it does not end up playing out well. The United States has a very poor track record with trying to prop up a new administration. It has not traditionally worked. You can look at countless countries in the Middle East where there has been both public and private regime change, things that were done behind the scenes by the CIA and some other three-letter agencies, in which it has not made the situation better. It has not made the area, the country, the region, it has not made it more prosperous. It has not made it better off. The U.S., and if you're critical of that and you've got some concerns, I completely understand that, and I think they're valid because of the unfortunate track record, the unfortunate history that the United States has with some of these regime changes in the Middle East. Now, a couple of other interesting things to note before the president begins speaking. Of course, oil is the big topic of discussion. Venezuela has the largest oil deposits anywhere in the world. Larger deposits and more oil available than even parts of Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. So it is a very, very strategically resource-heavy area. And for the United States to be involved in some facet of that could be very beneficial to the United States. I mean, you look at the ongoing situation between Russia and Ukraine. One of the things that President Trump did early on in this administration, early on in 2025, was sign that mineral rights agreement with Ukraine in exchange for continued support in the war against Russia. And what was the goal of that? It was to give the United States access to strategic resources moving forward. And so, oil and oil prices are a major discussion, major topic here in the United States when you talk about the domestic economy. So what is some of this involvement going to look like? What is some of this U.S. interest in Venezuela going to look like? We know that Maduro was real tight with China and Russia. I mean, literally last night, you had a Chinese envoy that was on the ground in Venezuela meeting with Maduro. Literally last night. Only for this morning, the United States, around 2 o'clock a.m. local time in Venezuela, for the United States to conduct these operations. And so there is a lot of geopolitical stuff going on here when you look at the tight relationship Maduro has with China and Xi Jinping. You look at the close relationship he has with Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, who, of course, came out and denounced the attacks. If I'm Putin, I'm making any phone call I possibly can this morning to get this war between Russia and Ukraine settled. I'm not saying that the United States is going to or should bomb or capture Vladimir Putin. That is not what I am indicating whatsoever. But this is yet again another situation where President Donald Trump is not going to be, and the United States in the larger part, is not going to be rolled over on the national stage. It's not going to happen. When the president comes out and tells you as a world leader, as he has told Nicolas Maduro now for months, stop screwing around, stop peddling drugs into the United States of America, stop acting as a third world dictator, when those warnings are made, they need to be listened to. President Trump warned Iran earlier last year. We saw what the end result of that was. Complete and total annihilation of their nuclear facility. We now have another situation unfolding less than 12 hours ago in Venezuela that hopefully is another indication to any world leader when the president of the United States, when the United States of America as a whole is requesting that you either do or do not do something, you better listen. Because if not, and especially if there's U.S. interest, for example, the Venezuelans dumping cocaine, fentanyl, and other drugs into the United States, there is, ladies and gentlemen, a vested U.S. interest. Unless you want to claim that the opioid problem isn't an issue here in the United States. Unless you want to claim that the overdose deaths that we see at the tune of hundreds of thousands of people a year dying, which, by the way, we don't even see hundreds of thousands of people dying in war, let alone hundreds of thousands of Americans, many of them younger, unfortunately, dying each and every year after overdosing, being drugged, taking a pill that they believe is an off the street Adderall or something like that, only for it to be laced with fentanyl and ODing at the ripe age of 22 years old. We see this all the time. There's hundreds of thousands of these deaths every single year stateside. I would argue that is a major problem. Maybe Democrats don't. Maybe Democrats are okay with the youth of America overdosing and dying due to countries like Venezuela and China who have a vested interest in importing either the precursors of fentanyl or actual fentanyl into the United States of America. Maybe Democrats are okay with that. I am not. I don't believe that many of you are either. You don't find that to be a lucrative situation for the United States. Not at all. So there is a reason that there's U.S. involvement here. There is a reason that these coordinated strikes happened in Venezuela early this morning. There's a reason that why 5 years ago, Nicolas Maduro, under the Trump administration, was charged in a U.S. courtroom by the Department of Justice. There is a reason that him and his wife are in captivity this morning and are set to later today be indicted in the Southern District of New York. There's a reason that all of that is happening. The president has made it abundantly clear to Maduro, to any other world leader, that if you are going to import people or you're going to import drugs into the United States, there will be consequences. Plain and simple. Some live commentary coming in on our Rumble live chat this morning. A comment says, I died laughing when I saw Maduro just met with China yesterday. Huge moves are being made and signals sent to our adversaries. The signal is clear. As Hegseth said, we're done with this shit. Well, that is exactly what Hegseth said. And the president just back a couple of weeks ago. I mean, again, anybody that is woke up this morning and found themselves dismayed by what happened. Oh my God, I can't believe that something happened. This is President Donald Trump back on 10/17. So back on October the 17th. Well, I believe this was during one of his joint meetings that he holds. One of the cabinet meetings that he was holding in the Oval Office at the time. This is what the president had to say back, what would the calendar be on this? Less than 2.5 months ago. Here's President Trump.
Maduro offered everything in his country, all the natural resources. He even recorded a message to you in English recently, offering mediation. What should we do in order to stop that?
He has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to fuck around with the United States. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I mean, does it get any more clear than that? That was 2.5 months ago. You don't want to F around with the United States. Direct quote from the President of the United States of America. Back on October the 17th, 2025. So you're going to sit here and say that you're shocked? That it's unbelievable that the United States took action? Really? I guess you have not listened to any of the words of the president, which is often a trap that those on the left fall into, right? We see this all the time. Everything is shocking. Everything is unbelievable to them. President Donald Trump, whether you like the guy or not, this is not even a political statement. Whether you like him or not, is the most accessible president in American history. I mean, in modern American history, maybe is a more accurate term to say. I don't want to speak of our nation's early presidents, completely different time and society that we were living in there. But in modern times, Donald Trump is the most accessible president in U.S. history. He speaks to the media. You've heard me say this before. Sometimes dozens of times a day. On and off of helicopters, on and off of planes, on planes, landing somewhere, speaking to the press, hosting a press conference, and then the entire thing on his way back to Washington, D.C. He is asked questions from reporters all around the globe. I don't know who this reporter was that asked the president the question that you just heard, but he sounded like he had a pretty strong foreign dialect, so I don't know if he was an American journalist or a foreign journalist covering the president, covering this administration. He takes these questions consistently. The warning has been abundantly clear now for months with the strikes of these narco-terrorist boats that Democrats seem to think are A-OK. They don't seem to have any concern whatsoever that individuals are taking jet boats, little jet boats, and feeding the United States with opioids, fentanyl, and other drugs that are causing hundreds of thousands of people a year to overdose. They don't seem to care about that. They want to argue semantics over whether it's right or wrong for the president to target these boats. That's the debate we're having? Is it fair to assume, with that argument existing the way that it does, that those on the political left are okay with the rampant amount of overdoses? That's what it seems like. Why the hell do we care about some narco boat terrorists operating off the coast of Venezuela? I don't. Maybe I'm wrong for that, but I don't think I am. I don't care. These individuals are poisoning the youth of America. Under the direction of the Venezuelan president in Maduro, they are illegally shipping these drugs and peddling them in the United States. Using their network of Tren de Aragua that exists here in the U.S. There was an arrest back in the middle parts of 2025 in North Carolina, both an arrest in Charlotte and Raleigh of known Tren de Aragua Venezuelan gang members here in North Carolina. Folks, this is not some boogeyman in the corner in the closet that nobody's ever seen. This is not the monster living under the bed that nobody has ever seen before. These individuals are currently operating in the United States of America. They are currently peddling and bringing these drugs stateside, day in and day out. This administration has made it abundantly clear that they are not playing that game anymore. This administration has made it, you could not make it any more obvious and clear, that there are going to be consequences for those that are either A, encouraging this to go on, of which Maduro was, or B, complicit in allowing it, knowing that it's happening and not doing anything to stop it. That is what we have seen. That is what we have learned over the last couple of months. So you should not be surprised or shocked with the events of last night, because the president, again, to his credit, has telegraphed this pretty well. He has made it abundantly clear what the ramifications of this will and should look like. And I think he's right in doing so. So, again, just kind of recapping everything as we wait for President Donald Trump to address the nation. He is in Mar-a-Lago, spending some time with his family in between the Christmas and New Year's holiday that we are in right now. The president Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela, he and his wife have been captured by the United States. They are currently on I don't know if they are still currently, but they were earlier this morning on a U.S. warship, the U.S. Iwo Jima. They are set to be indicted in a district court in the Southern District of New York State later on, presumably today, maybe tomorrow. Obviously, the transportation logistics on all of this are rather interesting when you've got a foreign entity like Nicolas Maduro and his wife who have been captured by the United States. So it's not immediately clear when that is set to happen, when that will happen. But as we have learned and heard from the president, it will. And Nicolas Maduro, who, by the way, the United States had previously offered a $50 million bounty on for information leading to the arrest or conviction of Maduro. So not shocking, not unbelievable, not unprecedented, not unheard of. It was pretty blatant and pretty obvious what was going on here. The Speaker of the United States House Mike Johnson just posting a little bit ago on social media. This is what he had to say. I've spoken in the last several hours with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and the nation will hear from the President of the United States in his address at 11 a.m. Eastern. Today's military action in Venezuela was a decisive and justified operation that will protect American lives. Nicolas Maduro is responsible for the death of hundreds of thousands of Americans after years of trafficking illegal drugs and violent cartel members into our country. crimes for which he's been properly indicted in the United States courts and arrest warrants duly issued. And today he learned what accountability looks like. President Trump is putting American lives first, succeeding where others have failed. And under his leadership, the United States will no longer allow criminal regimes to profit from wreaking havoc and destruction on our country. The Trump administration is working to schedule briefings for members as Congress returns to Washington next week. Our brave military personnel who executed a precise, successful operation deserve our gratitude and congratulations. Those comments coming in from the Speaker of the United States House in Mike Johnson just a little bit ago, promoting the president's comments to the nation, which were slated to start about 21 minutes ago. Things running seemingly a little bit behind, a little bit delayed in Palm Beach, Florida, at Mar-a-Lago, where the president has been for the last couple of days last couple of weeks, I should say, between Christmas and New Year. Some other conversation coming in as well. Congressman David Rouser, who represents us here in North Carolina's 7th Congressional District, commenting on it as well. He writes, Nicolas Maduro's capture and transport to the United States is a win for freedom in Venezuela and justice for America. Maduro is an indicted illegitimate dictator, which is an important distinction. President Trump's leadership is sending a clear message to those seeking to harm the United States. Regimes that flood our communities with illegal drugs, fuel cartel violence, and undermine U.S. security will be held accountable. President Trump's decisive actions puts American safety first and provides a real opportunity for stability, freedom, and a democratic future for Venezuela. Those comments coming in from Congressman David Rouser. He represents us here. If you are a member, if you live in southeastern North Carolina, he represents us here in the 7th North Carolina Congressional District, a Republican member of the United States House, commenting on this on social media as these strikes took place in the overnight hours here on the East Coast. 1 o'clock Eastern time, 2 o'clock local time in Venezuela, as the United States has captured Nicolas Maduro and his wife. J.D. Vance, also commenting on the situation, said the president offered multiple off-ramps, but was clearly thorough this process. The drug trafficking must stop, and the stolen oil must be returned to the United States. Maduro is the newest person to find out what President Trump means when he says, kudos to our brave special operators who pulled off a truly impressive operation. Then J.D. Vance highlighted again, saying, and a PSA for everyone saying this was illegal. Maduro has multiple indictments in the United States for narco-terrorism. You don't get to avoid justice for drug trafficking in the United States because you live in a palace in the Venezuelan capital. So the reaction is coming in here pretty strongly, which I think you would expect from members of Congress, from individuals that are closely aligned with the United States of America, or with this administration, I should say. Some other video coming in. This just popped up on my X feed. These are individuals in the streets of Venezuela's capital city, live right now on some app. I will admit I don't know what app this is, hugging each other, cheering in the streets as the illegitimate dictator and Nicolas Maduro, who went by the title of president, has been officially captured by the United States as that dictator, had been indicted multiple times here in the United States, or indicted here multiple times in the U.S. Very strategic operations taking place in the country of Venezuela last night as President Donald Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, and the entire team on this. And, I don't, again, know all that much about the populace in Venezuela. These people, if you're watching this on our live feeds this morning or after the fact, people seem very excited with the news in the streets of Venezuela. This does not appear to be a country in mourning. This does not appear to be a country of individuals who are terrified with what's going on. They are waving the Venezuelan flag. They are cheering. They are jumping in the streets. This appears to be a group of individuals that are happy that they have the opportunity now to elect a democratic government. This appears to be a group of individuals who are thrilled with the opportunity to have some level of a representative democracy, a representative democratic process system in which they can elect leaders that support them, elect leaders that will fight for their best interests, elect leaders that will provide additional success to their country. This image is just coming in as I scroll through. Here is a new picture coming in of Maduro in U.S. custody. This just posted on social media. You can see there the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro in some sort of a sweatsuit with what appears to be some sort of a noise-canceling headphones on, as well as some sort of blindfold, holding a bottle of water in his hand. There appears to be some member of the United States military or United States law enforcement standing over his left shoulder, as this is the first picture of Maduro in U.S. captivity, just released by the President of the United States. In this picture, is not seen in this picture, I should say, is his wife, who was also captured by U.S. forces as well. So that is just coming in right now. Again, the Venezuelan president, I guess you can put that in air quotes, the communist dictator Nicolas Maduro being captured here by the United States, as just scrolling through my social media feeds to see if we have any additional information coming in as we wait for President Donald Trump to address the nation. And yes, that picture was Maduro when he was aboard the USS Iwo Jima, the battleship off the coast of Venezuela. From accounts that I've read online, it would appear that he was captured by those U.S. forces and then transported via helicopter to the U.S. Iwo Jima. It is not clear whether he is still on board or if he has begun the process of being transitioned to the homeland here in the United States and getting in front of a judge for those crimes that he was charged on more than 5 years ago. Another interesting comment coming in on our Rumble live channel this morning as we await for President Donald Trump's comments. How secure will Maduro be when he is in New York City? Will the Marxists in New York City, including the new mayor, attempt to aid or free Maduro? If so, they will be caught. I would imagine that he is going to be held. That's a good question. I don't know what sort of facility they will hold him in, or if they will even hold him in New York City. From accounts, and again, some of this may not be accurate. Some of this still could be relatively flexible or up in the air. There was also discussions as to him potentially facing a courtroom somewhere in Miami as well, which would make more geographical sense. Obviously, Miami is probably 1,200 miles, if not more, south of New York City, and easier transport. Not exactly clear where Maduro will be held, but we do know that he will be. And so now the question's going to be a couple of different things. What does the U.S. involvement in regime change look like? And we may or may not hear some of that from the President of the United States as we await for him to address the nation. Coming up here in just a little bit, what the United States emphasis, impact, place will be with regime change. There's obviously in the country a lot of Maduro supporters. Many of those are very wealthy, rich individuals who are also behind this drug trafficking. They are the financiers, the individuals that know that this is going on, that are financially allowing these operations to take place. They are obviously strong supporters of the Maduro government because it's allowed them to enrich themselves at the tunes of potentially tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in these ongoing drug trafficking schemes. So what kind of now there's a power vacuum, obviously. You no longer have a sitting president, even though many were of the mindset that Maduro was an illegitimate president. He still held the title. He was still spending time in the presidential palace. And for all intents and purposes, he was still the acting president of the country, regardless of what individuals' concerns or frustrations were with the way in which previous elections have gone down. Now that he is literally out of the country, is in custody by the United States of America, there's obviously going to be a vacuum. And it will be interesting to see if the socialists that want to stay in power, those that would be kind of next in line behind Maduro, are they successful in grabbing power? Are they successful in using their positions, their wealth, their incredible amount of resources, of which they absolutely have, because many of them are alongside Maduro and the drug cartels in financing and allowing this to take place? Are they going to seize power, or are we going to see the people of Venezuela elect a government that they would prefer, a more democratic government? That is going to be what's interesting to see in the coming days, weeks, and months as we watch this process continue to play out and unfold. All of this is, of course, relatively new. Less than 12 hours ago, there was no rumblings of this happening. We have seen all of this unfold. Started around 1 o'clock Eastern time, 2 o'clock local time in Venezuela this morning, Saturday morning here, January the 3rd, 2026. When this action began and took place. So it will be interesting to see how quickly regime change happens. As I scroll through my social media feeds this morning, it appears there's just more and more videos making their way to my feed of individuals in the streets throughout the country of Venezuela. I believe a lot of the individuals are in the capital of Venezuela. They are in the streets, waving flags, cheering the entire situation on. And with that reaction taking place, it would appear blatantly obvious that the people of Venezuela, who just a couple of years ago were killing each other in the streets over rolls of toilet paper, that they are happy, that they are satisfied with the situation that has taken place by the United States. Not everybody, I get it. Not every single person, but a lot of them. Here is a response coming in from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the great progressive from New York. It's not about drugs. If it was, Trump wouldn't have pardoned one of the largest narco traffickers in the world last month. It's about oil and regime change, and they need a trial now to pretend that's it, especially to distract from Epstein plus skyrocketing healthcare costs. So there's the reaction from the left. I would say that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a prominent Democrat. I'm not going to make the argument that she speaks for each and every Democrat, but she speaks for a large portion of them. She's got a very large following, and this is about what you would expect. They can't just come out and say it is a good thing that a socialist, illegitimate dictator, Nicolas Maduro, who has been indicted in the United States of America, is now in custody. They can't say that. It would literally kill them to do so. They can't come out and say that it's good that hundreds of thousands of American lives will be saved by drugs being trafficked into the United States under the Maduro regime. They can't say that. It's literally impossible for them to do. They can't give President Donald Trump credit for anything. They never will. They have made that abundantly clear and abundantly obvious over the last couple of years. About 10 years at this point almost. So that's what the response has to be. It's about Epstein. Really? It's about Epstein and skyrocketing healthcare prices? Even though the president of the United States has been talking about this, has been threatening Maduro for months now, has shown very clearly with the strike of these narco boats off the Venezuela coast that we're not playing around anymore. Even with all of that, it's not about the drugs. It's as everything is. It's a distraction from Epstein. It's all they've got. Why can't they just come out and say this is a good thing? Why are they so entrenched in this ideology that they are seemingly satisfied and okay with American citizens being killed by the rampant drug trafficking that comes out of a place like Venezuela? It just makes no sense to me at all. I want to remind you that our show is only made possible thanks to our great advertisers and great supporters, those that support the show over at patreon.com/Nick Craig and the law group here in Wilmington. And I want to let you know that when legal challenges arise, make sure you put your trust in the law group. Since 2003, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across eastern North Carolina. Whether you're facing a divorce, navigating a real estate transaction, or maybe you're in a position where you need a strong criminal defense. If so, the Law Group has your back. Their dedicated team ensures your questions are answered and issues are resolved as quickly as possible. Great news, folks. They're located in downtown Wilmington and just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. Give them a call, 910-251-6088, or their website, lawgroupnc.com. The Law Group, experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate Melissa Gott and the team over at the Law Group for their continued support here of the Nick Craig Show. All right, kind of resetting this morning. President Donald Trump set to address the nation shortly. It was supposed to start around 11 o'clock. Things maybe running a little bit behind, a little delayed in Palm Beach, Florida, in and around Mar-a-Lago, where the president is set to address the nation here shortly on the capture of Venezuelan president, illegitimate president, dictator Nicolas Maduro. That happening around 2 o'clock a.m. Eastern time here Saturday morning on January the 3rd, and 2 o'clock local time, 1 o'clock here on the East Coast. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see exactly what the president has to say. He was on Fox News earlier this morning. I already played a couple of clips from that, but he was asked about this off ramp, because this has been one of the discussions in the last couple of weeks, or really over the last couple of months, right? Have you given him an opportunity, right? The U.S. has asked him to essentially surrender, wave the white flag, give up power. President Trump was asked about those off ramps. This was his response on Fox News this morning.
Well, basically, I said you have to give up, you have to surrender. And he was close, but in the end, I really didn't. We had to do something that was really much more surgical, much more powerful. This was much more powerful than anything we could have done. This is amazing, and we learned a lot going into. We learned a lot of things, but this was a very important symbol. And I had discussions. I actually spoke to him myself, but I said you have to give up, you have to surrender.
When did you speak to him?
He was not willing. A week ago.
So the president had spoken to Maduro as recently as a week or two ago, making the same pledge that that we've heard from the president again over the last couple of months now, calling on Maduro, calling on the regime in Venezuela to step aside, to wave the white flag, to surrender as we await. I'm just glancing over at some of the cable news networks to see what they've got going on, as the president is set to hold a news conference coming up here very shortly out of Palm Beach, Florida, addressing the nation. Fox News actually looks like they have a reporter on the ground, it would appear, on the streets of Venezuela, and it looks like, just from what I'm seeing behind her, a mixture of Venezuelan and American flags, both being waved in the streets behind this Fox News reporter, who is on the ground in Venezuela. Here is the President of the United States. Let's take a listen.
Appreciate you being here. Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, we've done some other good ones, like the attack on Soleimani the attack on al-Baghdadi and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently in an operation known as Midnight Hammer, all perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly, in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. It was dark and it was deadly. But captured along with his wife, Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. It's Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens. I want to thank the men and women of our military who achieved such an extraordinary success overnight with breathtaking speed, power, precision, and competence. You rarely see anything like it. You've seen some raids in this country that didn't go so well. They were an embarrassment. If you look back to Afghanistan, or if you look back to the Jimmy Carter days, they were different days. We're a respected country again, like never before. These highly trained warriors operating in collaboration with U.S. law enforcement caught them in a very ready position. They were waiting for us. They knew we had many ships out in the sea, just sort of waiting. They knew we were coming. So they were in what's called a ready position, but they were completely overwhelmed and very quickly incapacitated. If you would have seen what I saw last night, you would have been very impressed. I'm not sure that you'll ever get to see it, but it was an incredible thing to see. Not a single American service member was killed, and not a single piece of American equipment was lost. We had many helicopters, many planes, many people involved in that fight. But think of that, not one piece of military equipment was lost, not one service member was, more importantly, killed. The United States military is the strongest and most fearsome military on the planet, by far. With capabilities and skills our enemies can scarcely begin to imagine. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. There's no equipment like what we have, and you see that even if you just look at the boats. You know, we've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by sea. 90%. Each boat kills on average, 25,000 people. We knocked out 97%. And those drugs mostly come from a place called Venezuela. We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious, because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela, and that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen. We're there now, and what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, we're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as a proper transition can take place. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country. And we are ready to stage a second and much larger attack if we need to do so. So we were prepared to do a second wave if we needed to do so. We actually assumed that a second wave would be necessary, but now it's probably not. The first wave, if you'd like to call it that, the first attack was so successful, we probably don't have to do a second, but we're prepared to do a second wave, a much bigger wave, actually. This was pinpoint, but we have a much bigger wave that probably won't have to do. This partnership of Venezuela with the United States of America, a country that everybody wants to be involved with because of what we were able to do and accomplish, will make the people of Venezuela rich, independent, and safe. And it will also make the many, many people from Venezuela that are living in the United States extremely happy. They suffered. They suffered. So much was taken from them. They're not going to suffer anymore. The illegitimate dictator Maduro was the kingpin of a vast criminal network responsible for trafficking colossal amounts of deadly and illicit drugs into the United States. As alleged in the indictment, he personally oversaw the vicious cartel known as Cartel de las Solas, which flooded our nation with lethal poison, responsible for the deaths of countless Americans, the many, many Americans. Hundreds of thousands over the years of Americans died because of him. Maduro and his wife will soon face the full might of American justice and stand trial on American soil. Right now they're on a ship. They'll be heading to, ultimately, New York, and then a decision will be made, I assume, between New York and Miami or Florida. But we have people where the overwhelming evidence of their crimes will be presented in a court of law. And I've seen it. I've seen what we have. It's both horrible and breathtaking that something like this could have been allowed to take place. For many years after his term as president of Venezuela expired, Maduro remained in power and waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region. And you all saw it. In addition to trafficking gigantic amounts of illegal drugs that inflicted untold suffering and human destruction all over the country, all over in particular the United States, Maduro sent savage and murderous gangs, including the bloodthirsty prison gang Tren de Aragua, to terrorize American communities nationwide. And he did indeed. They were in Colorado. They took over apartment complexes. They cut the fingers off people if they called police. They were brutal, but they're not so brutal now. And I just have to congratulate our military, Pete and everybody, and our National Guard, because the job that they've done, whether it's in Washington, D.C., where we have a totally safe city, where it was one of the most unsafe cities anywhere in the world, frankly, and now we have no crime in Washington, D.C. We haven't had a killing. We had the terrorist attack a few weeks ago. A little bit of a different kind of a threat. But we haven't had a killing in a long period of time, 6-7 months. We used to have two, on average, 2 a week in Washington, our capital. We don't have that anymore. The restaurants are opening. Everyone's happy. They're going, they're walking their daughters, they're walking their children, their wives. They walk to restaurants. Restaurants are opening all over Washington, D.C. So I want to thank the National Guard. I want to thank our military. And I want to thank law enforcement. Been amazing. And they should do it with more cities. We're doing it, as you know, and we're doing it in Memphis, Tennessee right now, and crime is down. We've just sort of started a few weeks ago, but crime is down now 77%. And the governor of Louisiana called, great person, and he wanted us to help him, as you know, in a certain very nice part of Louisiana, and we have done that. And it was a rough section, and we have crime down. I understand it's down to almost nothing already after 2.5 weeks. New Orleans, it's down to almost nothing, and we've only been there for 2.5 weeks. Can't imagine why governors wouldn't want us to help. We also helped, as you know, in Chicago, and crime went down a little bit there. We did a very small help because we had no working ability with the governor. The governor was a disaster, and the mayor was a disaster, but it knocked down crime. But we're pulling out of there. When they need us, we'll know. You'll know. You'll be writing about it. And likewise, Los Angeles, where we saved Los Angeles early on, where the head of the police department made a statement that if the federal government didn't come in, we would have lost Los Angeles. That's long after the fires. That's when they had the riots in Los Angeles. We did a great job. Got no credit for it whatsoever, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We don't need the credit. But we'll be pulling out when they need us. They'll call, or we'll go back if we have to. We'll go back. But we did a great job in various cities. But the place that we're very proud of is Washington, D.C., because it's our nation's capital. We took it from being a crime-ridden mess to being one of the safest cities in the country. But the gangs that they sent raped, tortured, and murdered American women and children. They were in all of the cities I mentioned, Tren de Aragua. And they were sent by Maduro to terrorize our people, and now Maduro will never again be able to threaten an American citizen or anybody from Venezuela. There will no longer be threats. For years I've highlighted the stories of those innocent Americans whose lives were so heartlessly robbed by this Venezuelan terrorist organization. Really one of the worst. One of the worst, they say the worst. Americans like 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungari from Houston. Beautiful Jocelyn Nungari, what happened to her? They, as you know, they kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered by Tren de Aragua animals. They murdered Jocelyn and left her dead under the bridge. There was a bridge that will never be the same to so many people after seeing what happened. As I've said many times, the Maduro regime emptied out their prisons, sent their worst and most violent monsters into the United States to steal American lives. And they came from mental institutions and insane asylums. They came from prisons and jails. The reason I say both, they sound similar. Actually, prisons, a little bit more hostile, a little bit tougher. A mental institution isn't as tough as an insane asylum, but we got them both. They sent from their mental institutions. They sent from their jails, prisons. They were drug dealers. They were drug kingpins. They sent everybody bad into the United States, but no longer. And we have now a border where nobody gets through. In addition, Venezuela unilaterally seized and stole American oil, American assets, and American platforms, costing us billions and billions of dollars. They did this a while ago, but we never had a president that did anything about it. They took all of our property. It was our property. We built it. And we never had a president that decided to do anything about it. Instead, they fought wars that were 10,000 miles away. We built Venezuela oil industry with American talent, drive, and skill, and the socialist regime stole it from us during those previous administrations, and they stole it through force. This constituted one of the largest thefts of American property in the history of our country. considered the largest theft of property in the history of our country. Massive oil infrastructure was taken like we were babies, and we didn't do anything about it. I would have done something about it. America will never allow foreign powers to rob our people or drive us back into and out of our own hemisphere. That's what they did. Furthermore, under the now deposed dictator Maduro, Venezuela was increasingly hosting foreign adversaries in our region and acquiring menacing offensive weapons that could threaten U.S. interests and lives. And they used those weapons last night. Potentially in league with the cartels operating along our border. All of these actions were in gross violation of the core principles of American foreign policy, dating back more than 2 centuries, and not anymore. All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines, and the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Monroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. Won't happen. So just in concluding, for decades, other administrations have neglected or even contributed to these growing security threats in the Western Hemisphere. Under the Trump administration, we are reasserting American power in a very powerful way in our home region. And our home region is very different than it was just a short while ago. The future will be, and we did this in my first term. We had great dominance in my first term, and we have far greater dominance right now. Everyone's coming back to us. The future will be determined by the ability to protect commerce and territory and resources that are core to national security. These are core to our national security. Just like tariffs they've made our country rich, and they've made our national security stronger than ever before. But these are the iron laws that have always determined global power. And we're going to keep it that way. We will secure our borders. We will stop the terrorists. We will crash the cartels. And we will defend our citizens against all threats, foreign and domestic. Other presidents may have lacked the courage or whatever to defend America. But I will never allow terrorists and criminals to operate with impunity against the United States. This extremely successful operation should serve as warning to anyone who would threaten American sovereignty or endanger American lives. Very importantly, the embargo on all Venezuelan oil remains in full effect. The American Armada remains poised in position, and the United States retains all military options until United States demands have been fully met and fully satisfied. All political and military figures in Venezuela should understand what happened to Maduro can happen to them, and it will happen to them if they aren't just fair, even to their people. The dictator and terrorist, Maduro, is finally gone, and Venezuela people are free. They're free again. It's been a long time for them, but they're free. America is a safer nation this morning. It's a prouder nation this morning because it didn't allow this horrible person and this country that was doing very bad things to us. It didn't allow it to happen. And the Western Hemisphere is right now a much safer place to be. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank General Raisin Kane. He's a fantastic man. I've worked with a lot of generals. I worked with some I didn't like. I worked with some I didn't respect. I worked with some that just weren't good. But this guy is fantastic. I watched last night one of the most precise attacks on sovereignty. I mean, it was an attack for justice. And I'm very proud of him, and I'm very proud of our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who I'm going to ask to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Finally, a commander-in-chief the world respects and the American people deserve. And as the president said, words can barely capture the bravery and the power and the precision of this historic operation. A massive joint military and law enforcement raid flawlessly executed by the greatest Americans our country has to offer. American warriors are second to none, the best in the world and the best of our country. What all of us witnessed last night was sheer guts and grit, gallantry and glory of the American warrior. I'm simply humbled by such men. And I tip my hat to our chairman, Dan Raisin Kane, and all those Americans who stood watch last night. Our warriors are the elite of America, and again, President Trump has your back. No other country on planet Earth, and it's not even close, could pull this kind of operation off. And no other president has ever shown this kind of leadership, courage, and resolve, the most powerful combination the world has ever seen. As the president said, our adversaries remain on notice. America can project our will anywhere, anytime. The coordination, the stealth, the lethality, the precision, the very long arm of American justice, all on full display in the middle of the night. Nicolas Maduro had his chance, just like Iran had their chance, until they didn't and until he didn't. He effed around, and he found out. President Trump is deadly serious about stopping the flow of gangs and violence to our country. Deadly serious about stopping the flow of drugs and poison to our people. Deadly serious about getting back the oil that was stolen from us. And deadly serious about reestablishing American deterrence and dominance in the Western Hemisphere. This is about the safety, security, freedom, and prosperity of the American people. This is America first. This is peace through strength. And the United States War Department is proud to help deliver it. Welcome to 2026. And under President Trump, America is back. I'd like to welcome now our chairman, Chairman Raisin Kane, to give a few more details about the operation. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning. Last night, on the order of the President of the United States and in support of a request from the Department of Justice, as the President said, the United States military conducted an apprehension mission in Caracas, Venezuela, to bring to justice two indicted persons, Nicolas and Cecilia Maduro. This operation, known as Operation Absolute Resolve, was discreet, precise, and conducted during the darkest hours of January 2nd and was the culmination of months of planning and rehearsal, an operation that, frankly, only the United States military could undertake. What I'd like to do this morning is talk to you through some of the preparation and the details without compromising any of our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There is always a chance that we'll be tasked to do this type of mission again. Our interagency work began months ago and built on decades of experience of integrating complex air, ground, space, and maritime operations. While the past 2 decades have honed the skills of our special operations forces, this particular mission required every component of our joint force, with soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians working in unison with our intelligence agency partners and law enforcement teammates in an unprecedented operation. We leveraged our unmatched intelligence capabilities and our years of experience in hunting terrorists, and we could not have done this mission without the incredible work by various intelligence agencies, including the CIA, NSA, and NGA. We watched, we waited, we prepared, we remained patient and professional. This mission was meticulously planned, drawing lessons from decades of missions over the last many years, many missions over these last many years. This was an audacious operation that only the United States could do. It required the utmost of precision and integration within our joint force. And the word integration
does not explain the sheer complexity of such a mission. An extraction so precise it involved more than 150 aircraft launching across the Western Hemisphere in close coordination, all coming together in time and place to layer effects for a single purpose, to get an interdiction force into downtown Caracas while maintaining the element of tactical surprise. Failure of one component of this well-oiled machine would have endangered the entire mission, and failure is never an option for America's joint force. Those in the air over Caracas last night were willing to give their lives for those on the ground and in the helicopters. Let me talk a little bit about the preparation. After months of work by our intelligence teammates to find Maduro and understand how he moved, where he lived, where he traveled, what he ate, what he wore, what were his pets, in early December, our force was set pending a series of aligned events. Key was choosing the right day to minimize the potential for civilian harm and maximize the element of surprise and minimize the harm to the indicted personnel so, as the president said, they could be brought to justice. And as the president said earlier today, weather in Venezuela is always a factor this time of the year. And over the weeks through Christmas and New Year's, the men and women of the United States military sat ready, patiently waiting for the right triggers to be met and the president to order us into action. Last night, the weather broke just enough, clearing a path that only the most skilled aviators in the world could maneuver through. Ocean, mountain, low cloud ceilings. But when tasked with a mission, this organization does not quit. At 10:46 p.m. Eastern Time last night, the president ordered the United States military to move forward with this mission. He said to us, and we appreciate it, Mr. President, good luck and Godspeed. And those words were transmitted to the entire joint force. Over the course of the night, aircraft began launching from 20 different bases on land and sea across the Western Hemisphere. In total, more than 150 aircraft, bombers, fighters, intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance, rotary wing were in the air last night. Thousands and thousands of hours of experience were airborne. Our youngest crew member was 20, and our oldest crew member was 49, and there's simply no match for American military might. As the night began, the helicopters took off with the extraction force, which included law enforcement officers, and began their flight into Venezuela at 100 feet above the water. As they approached Venezuelan shores, the United States began layering different effects provided by Spacecom, Cybercom, and other members of the interagency to create a pathway. Overhead, those forces were protected by aircraft from the United States Marines, the United States Navy, the United States Air Force, and the Air National Guard. The force included F-22s, F-35s, F-18s, EA-18s, E-2s, B-1 bombers, and other support aircraft, as well as numerous remotely piloted drones. As the force began to approach Caracas, the Joint Air Component began dismantling and disabling the air defense systems in Venezuela, employing weapons to ensure the safe passage of the helicopters into the target area. The goal of our air component was, and always will be to protect the helicopters and the ground force and get them to the target and get them home. As the force crossed the last point of high terrain where they'd been hiding in the clutter, we assessed that we had maintained totally the element of surprise. As the helicopter force ingressed towards the objective at low level, we arrived at Maduro's compound at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 2:01 a.m. Caracas local time, and the apprehension force descended into Maduro's compound and moved with speed, precision, and discipline towards their objective and isolated the area to ensure the safety and security of the ground force while apprehending the indicted persons. On arrival into the target area, the helicopters came under fire, and they replied with that fire with overwhelming force in self-defense. One of our aircraft was hit but remained flyable, and as the president said earlier today, all of our aircraft came home, and that aircraft remained flyable during the rest of the mission. As the operation unfolded at the compound, our air and ground intelligence teams provided real-time updates to the ground force, ensuring those forces could safely navigate the complex environment without unnecessary risk. The force remained protected by overhead tactical aviation. Maduro and his wife, both indicted, gave up and were taken into custody by the Department of Justice, assisted by our incredible U.S. military with professionalism and precision, with no loss of U.S. life. After securing the indicted persons, the force began to prep for departure. Helicopters were called in to exfiltrate the extraction force, while fighter aircraft and remotely piloted aircraft provided overhead coverage and suppressive fire. There were multiple self-defense engagements as the force began to withdraw out of Venezuela. The force successfully exfiltrated and returned to their afloat launch bases, and the force was over the water at 3:29 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with indicted persons on board. And both Maduro and his wife were embarked aboard the USS Iwo Jima. In closing, what we've witnessed today is a powerful demonstration of America's joint force. We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we debrief, we rehearse again and again, not to get it right, but to ensure that we cannot get it wrong. Our jobs are to integrate combat power so when the order comes, we can deliver overwhelming force at the time and the place of our choosing against any foe anywhere in the world. I am immensely proud today of our joint force and filled with gratitude to represent them here today. There is simply no mission too difficult for these incredible professionals and the families that stand by them and support them. As we stand here this morning, our forces remain in the region at a high state of readiness, prepared to project power, defend themselves, and our interests in the region. This operation is a testament to the dedication and unwavering commitment to justice and our resolve to hold accountable those who threaten peace and stability. In closing, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the brave men and women who executed this mission. Their courage and tireless commitment to our nation are what makes us strong. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you, Mr. President.
Well, I don't have much to add to what you've heard now, other than the following points. Nicolas Maduro was indicted in 2020 in the United States. He is not the legitimate president of Venezuela. That's not just us saying it. The first Trump administration, the Biden administration, the second Trump administration, none of those three recognized him. He's not recognized by the European Union and multiple countries around the world. He is a fugitive of American justice with a $50 million reward, which I guess we saved $50 million. And
make sure.
Yeah, exactly. But
don't let anybody claim it. Nobody deserves it but us.
But I want to be clear about one thing. Nicolas Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this. He was provided multiple very, very, very generous offers and chose instead to act like a wild man, chose instead to play around. And the result is what we saw tonight. The other message here is the following. You have a guy, like many people around the world, they like to play games. You have a guy who decides he's going to invite Iran into his country, is going to, do the confiscation of American oil companies, is going to flood our country with gang members, is going to take Americans prisoner and try to hold them for hostage and trade them like he was able to do with the Biden administration. Basically likes to play games all this time and thinks nothing's going to happen. And I hope what people now understand is that we have a president. The 47th president of the United States is not a game player. When he tells you that he's going to do something, when he tells you he's going to address a problem, he means it. He actions it. I can tell you, I've watched this process now for 14, 15 years, been around it. Everybody talks. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. When I get there, we're going to do this. We're going to take. This is a president of action. I don't understand yet how they haven't figured this out. And now, if you don't know, now you know. because this is the way it's going to play out. And I think people need to understand that this is not a president that just talks and does letters and press conferences. And, if he says he's serious about something, he means it. And this is something that was a direct threat to the national interest of the United States, and the president addressed it. There's a president of peace, by the way. I told you what I just said earlier. This guy had multiple opportunities to find his way somewhere else and figure out another. He could have been living somewhere else right now, very happy, but instead he wanted to play big boy. And so now, he's got other sets of problems on his hands. And but I think the message here should be for the world. Look, the president doesn't go out looking for people to pick fights with. He's not generally wants to get along with everybody. We'll talk and meet with anybody, but don't play games. Don't play games with this president's in office, because it's not going to turn out well. And so I hope that I guess that lesson was learned last night, and we hope it'll be instructive moving forward.
Is that a message for Cuba, Mr. President?
Looks like there's going to be a little Q&A. We'll listen to a little bit of this live.
Please. Well, we're going to be running it with a group, and we're going to make sure it's run properly. We're going to rebuild the oil infrastructure, which will cost billions of dollars. It'll be paid for by the oil companies directly. They will be reimbursed for what they're doing, but that's going to be paid. And we're going to get the oil flowing the way it should be. As you know, it was just a minor flow. It was actually a minor flow for what they have. But we're going to run it properly, and we're going to make sure the people of Venezuela are taken care of. We're going to make sure the people that were forced out of Venezuela by this thug are also taken care of.
President, does the U.S. running the country mean that U.S. troops will be on the ground? How will that work?
Well, they always say boots on the ground. So we're not afraid of boots on the ground if we have to have. We had boots on the ground last night at a very high level, actually. We're not afraid of it. We don't mind saying it. But we're going to make sure that country is run properly. We're not doing this in vain. This is a very dangerous attack. This is an attack that could have gone very, very badly. Could have gone very badly. We could have lost a lot of people last night. We could have lost a lot of dignity. We could have lost a lot of equipment. The equipment is less important, but we could have lost a lot. And we're going to make sure that this is proper. We're there now. We're ready to go again if we have to. We're going to run the country right. It's going to be run very judiciously, very fairly. It's going to make a lot of money. We're going to give money to the people. We're going to reimburse people that were taken advantage of. We're going to take care of everybody. It's very important. We couldn't let them get away with it. They stole our oil. We built that whole industry there, and they just took it over like we were nothing. And we had a president that decided not to do anything about it. So we did something about it. We're late, but we did something about it. Yeah, please.
Mechanism by which you're going to run the country? Are you going to designate a U.S. official to coordinate?
Yes, it's all being done right now. We're designating people. We're talking to people. We're designating various people, and we're going to let you know who those people are.
Would run Venezuela?
Well, it's largely going to be, for a period of time, the people that are standing right behind me. We're going to be running it. We're going to be bringing it back. It's a dead, I talk about a dead country. A year and a half ago, we were a dead country. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We're a country doing better than any country anywhere in the world. And it required leadership. Venezuela has a lot of bad people in there, a lot of bad people that shouldn't be leading. We're not going to take a chance that one of those people take over for Maduro. So you can look at, and others, we have fantastic people, including people in the military. So we're going to have a group of people running it until such time as it can be put back on track, make a lot of money for the people, and give people a great way of life, and also reimbursement for people in our country that were forced out of Venezuela.
Rubio would be...
You said earlier today that you weren't going to back Machado to come back and be the opposition leader in your Fox and Friends interview. And then you also mentioned the vice president of Venezuela. Are you going to work with the vice president of Venezuela, or how do you foresee the relationship going?
I understand she was just sworn in, but she was, as you know, picked by Maduro. So Marco's working on that directly. He just had a conversation with her, and she's essentially willing to do what we think is necessary to make Venezuela great again. Very simple.
Mr. President, Colombian President Gustavo Petro, a couple weeks ago, he said he's got to watch his ass.
And today he said he's not concerned about anything happening to him in the aftermath of this operation. So just what your message is about that.
Well, he has cocaine mills. He has factories where he makes cocaine. And, yeah, I think I stick by my first statement. He's making cocaine. They're sending it into the United States. So he does have to watch his ass.
Mr. President, did you notify any members of Congress in advance?
Marco, do you want to talk about that? Because you were involved.
This should be
We
interesting.
called members of Congress immediately after. This was not the kind of mission that you can do congressional notification on. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met night after night. We watched and monitored that for a number of days. So it's just simply not the kind of mission you can call people and say, hey, we may do this at some point in the next 15 days. But it's largely a law enforcement function. Remember, at the end of the day, at its core, this was an arrest of 2 indicted fugitives of American justice, and the Department of War supported the Department of Justice in that job. Now, there are broader policy implications here, but it's just not the kind of mission that you can pre-notify because it endangers the mission.
Plus, if I could add one thing to that, Congress has a tendency to leak. This would not be good. If they leaked, General, I think it would have been maybe a very different result. But I have to say, they knew we were coming at some point, you know. We had a lot of ships out there. They sort of knew we were coming. We went there. But Congress will leak, and we don't want leakers.
People to watch this all play out live. What was Maduro doing when the U.S. forces entered what I assume would be his home? And also, was there any point where the U.S. was considering if Maduro pushed back or resisted killing Maduro?
It could have happened. It could have happened. He was trying to get into a safe place. You know, the safe place is all steel. And he wasn't able to make it to the door because our guys were so fast. They went through the opposition so fast. And there was a lot of opposition. You know, people were wondering, do we get them by surprise? Sort of surprised, but they were waiting for something. It was a lot of opposition. There was a lot of gunfire. You saw some of it today. But he was trying to get to a safe place, which wasn't safe because we would have had the door blown up in about 47 seconds, they say on average, regardless of how thick the steel was. It was a very thick door. It was a very heavy door, but he was unable to get to that door. He made it to the door. He was unable to close it. Go ahead, finish.
To be in the time being right now. Do you know his exact
Well,
whereabouts?
eventually, ultimately, in the near future, he's going to be brought to New York.
And where is he going to be held? Where is he going to be held in New York? Do you know?
That's going to be up to the officials that do these things.
Mr. President, the U.S. has something of a mixed track record of ousting dictators without necessarily a plan for what comes afterwards.
Not with me.
This is a good question.
Well, that's when we had different presidents.
This
but
is
with
a good
me,
question.
That's not true. With me, we've had a perfect track record of winning. We win a lot, and we win. If you look at Soleimani, you look at al-Baghdadi, you look at the Midnight Hammer. Midnight Hammer was incredible. Right now, you wouldn't have peace in the Middle East. We have essentially peace in the Middle East because of that. If we weren't successful with Midnight Hammer, you wouldn't have peace in the Middle East. So, with me, you've had a lot of victory. You've had only victories. You've had no losses. Yeah.
How long do you expect the U.S. to run Venezuela, and how soon do you want Venezuelan people to hold elections?
So I'd like to do it quickly, but it takes a period of time. You know, we're rebuilding. We have to rebuild their whole infrastructure. The infrastructure is rotted. It's actually very dangerous. It's blow-up territory. Oil is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing to take out of the ground. It can kill a lot of people. It has killed a lot of people doing just that. The infrastructure is old. It's rotted. Much of it is stuff that we put there 25 years ago, and we're going to be replacing it. And we're going to take a lot of money out so that we can take care of the country. Yeah.
Are you saying that Secretary Rubio and
Mr. President, China, Russia, and Iran have interests in Venezuela. How does this operation affect your relationships with them when it comes to the oil
China
and drugs?
and Russia,
the hell with them.
Russia, when we get things straightened out. But in terms of other countries that want oil, we're in the oil business. We're going to sell it to them. We're not going to say we're not going to give it to them. In other words, we'll be selling oil probably in much larger doses because they couldn't produce very much because their infrastructure was so bad. So we'll be selling large amounts of oil to other countries, many of whom are using it now, but I would say many more will come.
Are you saying, Mr. President, are you saying that, Mr. President, are you saying that?
Mr. President, thank you. What is your message to the people of Venezuela today? Of course, the civilian population specifically, they have a lot of questions. What is your message to the people of Venezuela?
That you're going to have peace, justice. You're going to have some of the riches that you should have had for a long period of time. It was stolen from you. But you're going to have peace, and you're going to have safety. You're going to have justice. You're going to have a country. You're going to have a real country. You're going to have potentially a great country. You know, if you go back 20 years, maybe even a little longer ago, that was a great country, and they destroyed it. Remember I said that if we lose this election, the United States will be Venezuela on steroids. That's what would have happened. Had we lost the election, the 2024 election, we suffered so badly. When you look at the border from 2020, what they did, what Joe Biden administration did to our country should never be forgotten. But if we had to go through another year of that, we would be exactly where Venezuela was in terms. I used to say, if they win, we're going to be Venezuela on steroids, and that's what would have happened.
President, thank you. Are you saying that Secretary Hegseth and Rubio are going to be running Venezuela, and will you be sending in U.S. military
They're
troops
going
to
to be a
provide?
team that's working with the people of Venezuela to make sure that we have Venezuela right. Because for us to just leave, who's going to take over? I mean, there is nobody to take over. You have a vice president who's been appointed by Maduro, and right now she's the vice president, and she's, I guess, the president. She was sworn in as president just a little while ago. She had a long conversation with Marco, and she said, we'll do whatever you need. I think she was quite gracious, but she really doesn't have a choice. We're going to have this done right. We're not going to just do this with Maduro, then leave like everybody else, leave and say, let it go to hell. If we just left, it has zero chance of ever coming back. We'll run it properly. We'll run it professionally. We'll have the greatest oil companies in the world go in and invest billions and billions of dollars and take out money, use that money in Venezuela. And the biggest beneficiary are going to be the people of Venezuela. And also, I can't stress this strongly enough, the people that got thrown out of Venezuela that are now in the United States, and frankly, some want to stay and some probably want to go back, yeah.
In the country, and were any of the detained Americans?
Well, right now they're very
arrested
protected because nobody's going to mess with us. They're very protected. The people of, and we let them know that you better not touch one of them.
And are you concerned that bad elements of the Maduro regime will remain in place?
Well, we know who they are. We're on them, and they're acting much differently now than they would have acted 2 days ago. Okay, wait, behind you, please.
Mr. President, why is running a country in South America America first?
Well, I think it is because we want to surround ourselves with good neighbors. We want to surround ourselves with stability. We want to surround ourselves with energy. We have tremendous energy in that country. It's very important that we protect it. We need that for ourselves. We need that for the world. And we want to make sure we can protect it. Yes, sir. Please, go ahead.
Is there a message here for Cuba and Diaz-Canel?
Well, Cuba's an interesting case. Cuba is, not doing very well right now. That system has not been a very good one for Cuba. The people there have suffered for many, many years. And I think Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about because Cuba is a failing nation right now, very badly failing nation. And we want to help the people of It's very similar in the sense that we want to help the people in Cuba, but we want to also help the people that were forced out of Cuba and living in this country. Do you want to say something about that, Marco, please?
Well, I mean, I just gave you a statement a few minutes ago about when the president speaks, you should take him seriously. So suffice it to say, Cuba is a disaster. It's run by incompetent, senile men, and in some cases, not senile but incompetent nonetheless. It has no economy. It's in total collapse. And by the way, they were, all of the guards that helped protect Maduro. This is well known. Their whole spy agency, all that were full of Cubans. I mean, it's amazing. This poor island took over Venezuela in some cases. One of the biggest problems the Venezuelans have is they have to declare independence from Cuba that tried to basically colonize it from a security standpoint. So, yeah, look, if I lived in Havana and I was in the government, I'd be concerned, at least a little bit.
Cutting off the oil flow to Cuba from Venezuela?
Well, the president already announced a week ago that anything that's sanctioned, it's sanctioned oil, it's not going to be allowed to get there. So that's a pre-existing.
The answer is yes. Yes.
Opposition leader Machado, and have you been in contact with her?
No, we haven't. No, we haven't.
Mr. President, on Monday.
Oh, I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect.
Mr. President, is it possible that the U.S. ends up administrating Venezuela for years?
4% and 5% of the energy out of the ground. You take a look. It was 4% and 5% of the energy out of the ground. You take a look. It was such a disaster. So what's going to happen with Venezuela, I think, over the next period of a year is going to be a great thing. And the people of Venezuela will be the biggest beneficiaries.
Going to send in
the U.S. military.
Mr. President, thank you. What did you last speak to Maduro about when you spoke? And is the
Well, I don't want to get
war
into
with
the
Venezuela?
conversations, but I did have conversations with him, and I said, you got to surrender. And I actually thought he was pretty close to doing so, but now he wished he did, yeah.
You said that Maduro is responsible for drug trafficking. You recently pardoned the former president of Honduras who was convicted of many drug trafficking. Can you explain how these two situations are different? And would you ever pardon Maduro?
I endorsed, as you know, the winning president, the man who won in Honduras. I endorsed the man who won in Chile. I endorsed the man who won in Argentina. And we are doing very well with that whole group. What the man that I pardoned was, if you could equate it to us, he was treated like the Biden administration treated a man named Trump. That didn't work out too well for them. This was a man who was persecuted very unfairly. He was the head of the country. He was persecuted very unfairly. And there are a number of them. And we felt that it was a very unfair situation that happened to him. He's also a party member of the man who won. So obviously the people liked what I did. And one of the reasons that was done is because of the fact that the party in power felt very strongly that that man was treated very badly. I studied it very quickly, and then I studied it in great detail. I went to a lot of the people standing behind me, and they felt that that man was persecuted and treated very badly. That's why I gave him a pardon.
You referenced boots on the ground earlier. Can you just sort of button this up? Do you envision the U.S. military having a presence in Venezuela as the U.S. runs that
Well,
country?
no, we're going to have a presence in Venezuela as it pertains to oil, because we have to have, we're sending our expertise in. So you may need something, not very much. But no, we're going to be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground. And that wealth is going to the people of Venezuela and people from outside of Venezuela that used to be in Venezuela. And it goes also to the United States of America in the form of reimbursement for the damages caused us by that country. So I want to thank you all very much. Thank you. Do you have one? Yes, please. You were so nice before. I'm going to give you the final question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr.
Unless
President.
it's a bad question, in
It's
which
about
case I'll
Putin.
go one word. It's about who?
It's about Putin, if you want.
About Putin. Well, that's always nice to talk about Putin.
You had a phone call with him
Yeah.
on Monday. Did he talk at all about Maduro? Did y'all talk about this?
No, we didn't.
And
We
then-
never spoke about Maduro.
Are you mad at him right now? I mean, there's this
I'm not
intelligence.
thrilled with Putin. I'm not thrilled with Putin. He's killing too many people. I thought that would be so. I settled 8 1/4 war. You know what the 1/4 was? Thailand and Cambodia. I did it again. They broke out, and I did it in about 5 hours, and I settled it. I'm giving myself 1/4, so I'm up to now 8 1/4. In other words, I settled the war, but then they broke out. They had a pretty bad breakout over the last 4 days. I got them to go back to peace, so I only give 1/4. I thought the easiest one would be, one of the easier ones would be Russia, Ukraine. It's not, and they both have done some pretty bad things. And look, that's Biden's war. That's not my war. But I want to stop the lives. Did you see where last month, 30,000, it was 27,000 the month before. 30,000, mostly soldiers, were killed this last month. 30,000. I want to stop that. You know, I got NATO to pay 5% instead of the 2% that they weren't paying. They weren't paying 2, now they pay 5. And we send them a lot of munitions. We send them a lot of things, missiles and various other things, a lot. And they pay. The United States is not losing money. We're probably making money on that. It's the last thing I care about. I just want to stop all those people. We're losing 25, 30,000 human beings that come from 2 places that are very far away. But if I can stop, because it's something I've been pretty good at doing, deals, I guess. It's all a deal. Life is a big deal. But if I can stop that war and stop 30,000 young people, in addition to the fact that people are being killed in Kiev, people are being killed in other cities throughout, a much smaller number, but they're being killed, viciously killed. So I'm not happy about it. I thought that would be something that would get solved. We have Mr. Witkoff here. I think that we're making progress, but that's a war that should have never happened. If I were president, it would have never happened. Putin says it. Everybody says it. If I were president, that would have never happened. But I inherited that war. That was Joe Biden, Zelensky, and Putin. I came into the situation, and it's a mess. And I will say this. I watched an operation last night that was so precise, that was so brilliant. I mean, it was incredible. If we had our people, like this general and our people involved, that war would not have gone on very long, that I can tell you. That war, to use an old term, that war has become a bloodbath, and we want it to get stopped. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, that is going to do it. President Donald Trump addressing the nation for about an hour or so from Palm Beach, Florida, on the capture of the individuals the two individuals out of Venezuela, the president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, as he announced that the United States, at least temporarily, will be running operations in Venezuela. It is going to be something interesting to follow in the days and weeks to come. I'm going to be compiling information here over today and tomorrow and have all of the latest coming up for you Monday morning, 7 o'clock. We're back to our usual time slot, 7 a.m., streaming live on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and in your favorite podcast app at The Nick Craig Show, plus a major announcement for the future of The Nick Craig Show and some exciting news Monday morning as well. I'll bring you those details coming up Monday morning at 7 o'clock on all of our live channels. Thanks to the law group in Wilmington, Melissa Gott and her amazing team for their continued support. Thanks to all of you who support the show on patreon.com/Nick Craig or watch the show each and every weekday morning. That's going to do it for a special Saturday edition of The Nick Craig Show of the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in custody. We'll have the latest coming up for you Monday morning right here. Have a great weekend.